Welcome to Real Judaism with Rabbi Ari Klapper. Unfiltered wisdom for Jewish life.
Okay, we are here in Perek Yud Gimel. Perek Yud Gimel, Hilchos Shabbos. This is the last perek of the last number of prakim that talk about the same topic, which we described as understanding that Shabbos is a different mitzvos. We are in a different country. We are in a different world. There are different rules. So when it comes to Shabbos, there's a whole set of rules, and that set of rules is called Hilchos Shabbos. What are the laws of Shabbos? We just got started just now. We started Perek Yud Beis on Daf Kup Lamed Hey. Hilchos Shabbos. The rules when it comes to being in front of the king. What is protocol when you're in front of the king? Perek Yud Beis. What is protocol when you're in front of the king? So, we start right here at the beginning. Mishnah Brura, Hagdama, the Hilchos Shabbos, Hevi Edibrei Rabbeinu Bala Tumim, the Bala Tumim, great halachic sefer. And he brings there in the beginning, Varhid Beno Hagoyin Bala Urim Betumim Besipro Yaros Dvash. Yonasan Eibshitz, the great Reb Yonasan Eibshitz, who's written so many sefarim and has enhanced Torah tremendously. In his sefer Urim Betumim, which is really based in Choshe Mishpat, he writes there that he writes in his different sefer Yaros Dvash, Ki efshar klal b'mitzias she'inatzal mi'isr Shabbos im lo yilamed kol adinim al buram heitev. It is impossible, he writes. It's impossible to not be over on Hilchos Shabbos if you don't learn Hilchos Shabbos well. Hilchos Shabbos is so intricate. There are so many little details of it, and it's so vast. Not only in terms of lamates melachos, but there's so many durabanans, even big durabanans like muktzah, which is a tremendous din durabanan. Eruvin, maybe you need the people who know eruvin, but eruvin is also din durabanan. And then, of course, there's the positive side of Shabbos, Kiddush, the Gimel Sudas. Shabbos is so huge, it's so tremendous. We don't spend time learning Shabbos, so then we're not going to know. Mashma. Second paragraph, Mashma de Bishar mitzvos haTorah. Itochin li natal milabor aleim al yidei hiyidiyus shekol bebeis rabo. It's possible in the other mitzvahs that a person can just can get by just by living from home. Mima shechoinech v'shama hilchos hamitzvos v'heich lizar milabor aleim. Just by hearing, just by being around. In a from home, in a yeshiva atmosphere, growing up, learning in school, and just that should be good enough to be able to keep all the other mitzvahs, right? We might not get every single intricacy, but it's good enough. It's good enough. We'll be able to be mekayim hadlakas neros Chanukah, daled minim. Matzah, we won't eat chametz on Pesach. We can make sure to get rid of all that chametz. Maybe we might have to do a little bit more than we're going to end up doing more than we actually need to do. But more or less, the person will be able to keep the halachos. Aval Hilchos Shabbos chayev dafka l'lamdam heitev. Specifically, Shabbos, a person has to learn better. V'zeh l'choyer b'nei Hilchos Shabbos en kol kach rabot mitpartot the pratim rabim. It's because Hilchos Shabbos is so grand, like we discussed before in other shurim, how endless Hilchos Shabbos is in every single little nuance or detail. I'll call to nuos adam heichen shu, every little thing that a person does, like we discussed in the previous shurim, how careful a person has to be with their hands. If a person does not know them well, against his will, he's going to end up being Mechal Shabbos. Now he's going to be realizing he's going to be Mechal Shabbos. There is a place to add a little bit more here, to make more of an emphasis on this. Why is Hilchos Shabbos so different than all the other mitzvahs in the Torah? Maybe not all. We're going to see what it's similar to later on in this parak. But in many differences of the Torah, why is it that you have to learn Hilchos Shabbos so well? So Pinkus says over here, I'm going to make a little mashal. Not really a mashal. This is a true story that he's about to tell us. This story is remarkable. It's remarkable in its simplicity, this story, but it brings out such an important point that we've been discussing in the last number of weeks. This is a true story that brings out this point so well. So what is this Ma'aser Shahoyo, this story that happened? Misuper b'sefer Omod Ha'esh. There was a sefer Omod Ha'esh al Kiddush Yisrael me Reb Yisrael Diskin. A book about Reb Yisrael Diskin, who was a Rav in Yerushalayim. Shebioto Rav Lumza. He was a Rav of Lumza. Oimer Haya Kesar Nikolai Arishon. This is when he was a Rav in Lumza. So it says that the czar of Russia, Tsar Nikolai the First, he was coming to the city. He was coming to visit them, to Lumza. Obviously they did their best. When they don't have endless funds, but they did their best to make something very mechubad, to welcome the king, the czar, the great czar, Tsar Nicholas the First. Wow. Even if you don't like him, at least pretend you do. And you got to pretend really good that you do, because if you don't pretend very well, then who knows what it'll be, right? Everybody loves him, and you have to have a grand welcoming. Karoya Melech, like the deserving of a king. Barosh Hamishlachas Almud Parnes Ha'ir Reb Yisrael Diskin. And at the head of the delegation should be the Parnes Ha'ir, meaning more or less the leader of the Jewish community, whose name was Reb Yisrael Diskin. Kishiyeshvu im Rabbeinu lityayit al derech ishtatfut akila bekabalas pnei hakezar. When they sat down for a meeting, obviously the Caesar, the czar of Russia, doesn't just decide to show up. He tells them in advance they're coming, so you can prepare and be prepared for the czar. And they were sitting down and they were planning, and they were talking about who should be involved with the welcoming of the czar. So he says, Kishiyabu al Rabbeinu, when they came to Reb Yisrael Diskin to be miyayich, they asked him al derech ishtatfut b'kehila b'kabalas pnei hakezar. How should the community be involved with greeting the czar? Hiflit Rabbeinu derech agav ha'ara leparnes. He, by the way, the Reb Diskin mentioned as an aside, Hayiti mityayis lecha shelo tityatev b'nei hakezar. He gave to the leader of the community, the parnes of the community. He told him, I don't think you should be involved with the welcoming. I don't think you should be part of the delegation. He mentioned it as an aside. Haparnes lo kibol et ha'ara. You insulted me? I'm the leader of the community. I'm not going to be the one who's going to lead the delegation to greet the czar. How can that be? He totally disregarded what the Rav had to say. Shelo yochol haya litaer la'atzmo shu betur nasi akila. He couldn't even imagine. He is the president of the congregation. He's the one who has to stand and be the representative of the Jewish community. It has to be him. So he disregarded that the Rav told him, maybe this is not for you. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. Sometimes, just as an aside in this story, sometimes I'll get a phone call about a shidduch. You get a phone call about a shidduch, and your feeling is that this is not a good shidduch, and you even have some good reasons for it. You don't want to always share the reasons. So, and maybe it's lashon hara, even it could be. So you say something like, "I don't think this is a good idea for you." What? Why not? Well, this and that. I don't think it's a good idea for you. So then there's a question from that other end. The person who you called to give you information said straight out, I don't think this is good for you. Now, those people, they don't understand why, because they don't understand that maybe there was lashon hara here, or for whatever reason he doesn't want to say the reason. And then they decide, do I decide on my own? Well, I think it's okay. Well, I think it's going to be good. Or do they talk, you call this person up, and obviously you're trusting him to a certain degree if you're calling them up, and they're saying to you that they don't think it's a good idea. You're going to trust them, or you're not going to trust them. Here, there's a question of, well, obviously it depends. Who am I calling? Is it somebody that, if the Rav tells you not to do it, why? It's just an eitzah. I don't have to listen to him. I don't have to listen. There are people out there, unfortunately, That's how they view it. I decide. I'm not listening to the Rav. I'll decide what's right. Well, let's see what happened to this man by deciding that he was going to do it and not listen to the Rav. So the Tsar came, Kishabah Kesar, Toif Kadei Siyuro Beroiva Yehudi, while he was touring around the Jewish quarter of the town. Pana Kesar Levaker at Beis HaCholim, he went to tour the hospital. Beis HaCholim HaYehudi, Shehukam Mimavo, Ha'ir, Al Yedei Reb Yisrael. The hospital was put up by the Parnas. Usually the president of the community is also usually the richest man in the community as well. Somehow that always works out. At least back then it did. And he was the one who built this hospital. Bishaza Bikur, during the time that he went around touring the hospital. Bishaza Bikur Ha'ir Lo Ha'kezal Luki Misuyim B'Abnis Habayis. He said, well, over there, what? That looks like a mistake. The way that you built that over there, that looks like a mistake. Reb Yisrael, so the Parnes who was there, escorting the king, showing him around, his beer, he explained, no, if you would see the plans, you would understand, it's not a mistake, and they had to build it like this, because of this and that, and okay. HaKezer tzad oid kama psiot, he took another few steps, and then he pointed to, and he pointed at another thing. That also looks like a mistake over there. And again, the Parnes, Reb Yisrael Chazer, he came back with his beer and he said, no, that I know what you're saying. It's because of this. If you would see the plans, you would understand that we needed to do it like this. It has to be held up like that, and certain things. Odahu Melamed Sanigoria al Mipal Yodov. He played the defense attorney for the way he built it. Va'ketzanim hamilavin hikifu v'hoviu el beis hasoyar. The guards, the royal guards that were walking around with the czar, took this Reb Yisrael after he made that second explanation and threw him in jail. Chok hamalchus. Turns out that one of the laws of the land, or the laws around the king, is Chok hamalchus haya shemimikre v'hakesar mutach bikoris. That in the time where the czar comes around and he comes to check things and he mentions some things are wrong, the law is, you must agree to what the czar says. If he points out that something is wrong, you say, yes, sir. That's what you say. You say, of course, sir. We'll have it fixed as soon as possible. Yes, sir. That's what you do. You don't say, no, really, you're making a mistake. It's really okay. You have to say, don't worry, it'll be taken care of. It'll be fixed. But the unfortunate chap, Reb Yisrael, the Parnes, didn't know that was protocol with the king. He didn't understand that, hey, wait a second, you can't contradict the king. You can't contradict the czar. If he says jump, you say how high. You don't say, well, you don't really need to jump because of X, Y, and Z. You don't do that. If he tells you this needs to be fixed, you say, we'll have it fixed as soon as possible. That's what you say. You don't say no. Reb Yisrael shelo yoda soid nimusi zir. Reb Yisrael didn't know these protocols with the king. So when the czar pointed out certain problems, b'mokom lahaskim ledaito nisa lishachno she'ein mamish b'bikoret zu. So when the czar pointed things out, Reb Yisrael was quick to explain to him why no, it's not really a problem, and that's why he acted wrongly in the protocol. Sof davar rak acharei sheyedulim rabim shocher halal mikilo. Only after putting a lot of strings that we're able to get this Reb Yisrael out of prison. It was not easy to get him out of prison. Kishenishal Rabbeinu achar kach. When they went back to Reb Yisrael Diskin and they asked him, Al yedei acher mimikurav ma ra liyait mirosh leReb Yisrael shelo yofia b'chagigas kabbalas panim. They remembered, hey, wait a second. You told him that he shouldn't be part of the delegation in the first place, and he didn't listen to you. Why did you say that? How did you know? So Ha'isa tshuva. So what was his answer? Makirani also ki ish pashut. I recognize this man. He's just a simple man. V'shirasi sheyichshol be'omdo pnei keisa. And I was scared that he would make a mistake when he was standing in front of the king. He recognized this person doesn't know protocol in front of a king. He has no idea. He's just gonna mess everything up. He shouldn't be part of this delegation. And probably also because of his standing, he's not used to putting himself down in front of other people. It's not his nature. Everybody else who puts themselves down automatically maybe, but he is not even like that. He's the parnes. It's not his way. He doesn't know protocol, and he's going to make a big mistake. Even somebody who's a very mechubadik person, when he has to stand in front of the king, if he doesn't know all the exact laws, he doesn't know exactly how to act, it's not possible that he's not going to make a mistake. It's not possible. Before you standing in front of the king, you must have the whole protocol in front of you. This is what we've been talking about over the last number of weeks, that we're standing in front of Hashem on Shabbos. That's what we're doing. We're mamish in front of Hashem. If we're standing in front of Hashem, we have to go with the king's protocol. What's the king's protocol? Well, it's a long protocol. It's a lot. It's a lot to do. We got to keep doing it. Keep doing it. It doesn't mean necessarily that we're going to get everything in one shot. Obviously, Hilchos Shabbos is huge. A person grows up in a frum home is much easier for him than a person who's a Baal Tshuva and starting off with nothing, and they have to work much harder. But a person can't stop. You have to keep reviewing, keep going over Hilchos Shabbos again and again and again. It doesn't mean necessarily the person have to learn the whole thing be'in, although probably that would be better. And we can start out. There's so many kitzur sefarim, both in English and in Hebrew, and Hilchos Shabbos, and each one to their own flavor. There's the 3 minutes a day for Hilchos Shabbos, and then there's Simcha Bun Cohen has a whole set of sefarim on Hilchos Shabbos, and Reb Yisrael has a whole set of Shabbos, and Orchos Shabbos has become a very popular sefer here in Hilchos Shabbos, and of course there's the Mishnah Berurah, which seems that to finish Chelek Gimel with the Dirshu Mishnah Berurah would take a long time, right? But a person who's dedicated to it can do it that way too. We just have to keep doing it. That's the key. A person can. You're going to stand in front of the king. We're going to mess up. What's going to be? And this story is a melech basav adam, a human king. You're standing in front of the Ribono Shel Olam. Of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a little bit more rachmanis, or a lot more rachmanis, than this goyish czar. But at the same time, we have to come with a level of respect. We can't just rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu's rachmanis. We have to obviously treat him with even greater respect than somebody would treat the king or the president. Misaprim Shachovetz Chaim Zichus Yagein Aleinu Amar B'Shivcho Shel Hagoyin Reb Shlomo HaKohen Mivilna. When the Chovetz Chaim, when he praised this great Rav Reb Shlomo HaKohen from Vilna, the Cheshek Shlomo, She'imaya Beis HaMikdash Nimne B'Yomov, if the Beis HaMikdash would have been built in his days, Hayoboki Lasos as Avodah HaMikdash, he would be ready right away to do the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. Now that's a tremendous compliment, a tremendous compliment. But we have to understand what really the greatness of that compliment is. Right? There are Baruch Hashem. We have a lot of people who really do know halachos. A lot of rabbanim, a lot of poskim who know Hilchos Shabbos and other halachos very, very well. And they don't necessarily, not everybody gets this level of praise. Person knows the halachos of treifus, which is also not such a simple thing. Maybe not in our door, it's even more rare. Once upon a time, just to be a rav in a town, you have to know hilchos treifus. You have to pass, and they would, the women would bring a chicken, and they would say, "Is this kosher or treif?" Most of the time, we don't, rabbanim in the towns don't have to paskin on this. We have Rabba Machshers in the Schlacht house that deal with this. So, but once upon a time, all the rabbanim had to do with it. The one who shechted it gave it back to the wife, and she would take it to the rav if he even thought that there was some kind of issue. But still, a person knows Hilchos Treifus and Hilchos eruvin. Eruvin is very, very difficult. Very difficult. To know Hilchos eruvin is a big deal. Still, they don't get that level of praise. About Hilchos avodah, the halachos of the avodah, the Beis HaMikdash, koishim miyuchad yesh b'hem. There's a very, very high level of difficulty in it. Not just because it's foreign to most people, but the intricacies are they're so specific, they're so dark, right? And it's very, very hard. Besides that, I just said that it's very foreign to people. How many people are there that are sitting and learning kachim? People learn kachim in Londis. They learn svars and depths of it, but do they learn practical halacha l'maisa? It's very interesting. I believe one of the son-in-laws of the Chavetz Chaim wrote a sefer on Hilchos Korbanos, meaning halacha l'maisa, how to do the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash halacha l'maisa. The sefer is called avodah Korbanos, and there the Chavetz Chaim himself writes hakdama to the sefer, and he writes about how important it is to learn Hilchos Kachim, because we're going to have a Beis HaMikdash, and we're going to need people who are going to know what they're doing. So certainly for Kohanim, and he had a Kachim Kollel. The Chavetz Chaim himself was a Kohen. I don't know. But Lamaisa, he himself had a famous Kachim Kollel, which were great Rabbanim were in this Kachim Kollel, including Rav Chanan Wasserman, and I believe the Panovich Rav was also in this Kollel. It's a tremendously difficult limud, and that's why he gave this person the Cheshek Shlomo this praise. It's so difficult because we're not used to it. These are foreign things. We can't see it in action. There's no chance. It's like, oh, I saw the way he did it, or we can ask because it's not being done actively. In order to do it from scratch, without being the first person in the last 2,000 years to do this avodah, without anybody to ask, without having seen it before, that's a tremendous thing to do. So he's adding an extra point over here. It's not just that it's so foreign. It's that when you're in the Beis HaMikdash and you're doing the avodah, you have to realize every single little detail makes a difference. If the clothing that the Kohen Gadol is wearing doesn't fit properly, it could be that it's also for him to do the avodah like that, depending on the reason why it doesn't fit properly, right? That means even before you started, you already were doing it wrong, right? How are you supposed to wash your hands and feet? You do that wrong. Again, he hasn't even done any avodah yet, and it could already be that he's doing it wrong. Because every little detail, as you're standing in front of Hashem, every single thing has to be done perfectly. That's why there's so many, and they're so difficult, and they're so fine. Only a great person will know it so well in order to actually do it, which shows the praise that the Chavetz Chaim had for the Cheshek Shlomo. And it's through this, and we'll finish up this paragraph with this paragraph, but there's a little addition over here. Well, I'm going to add on also. But it's al derech tziyur zeh. It's based on this example. Who gam kein Hilchos Shabbos. We can look at Shabbos the same way. This is another example. We mentioned a number of prakim ago that Shabbos and the Beis HaMikdash were very similar, and there were so many parallels. Here we see another parallel. Just like in the avodah of the Beis HaMikdash, you're standing in front of the king. Also on Shabbos, you're standing in front of the king. Hilchos Shabbos him rabim ba'amukim. That's why it's so grand, so deep. Misha eino melumad behen mamish lo yitachin shelo yichshol. Somebody who doesn't really know them, it's not possible that the person shouldn't fall. It's really quite amazing when we go back to the previous parak, and we spoke about a person who puts his hand to look for something and he touches something muktzah. You have to realize, what do you mean? I have to keep my hands a certain way. That's the protocol on Shabbos. You don't move out of turn. Now, obviously, it's not the same thing. You don't have to be standing there like a soldier for 24 hours straight. That's not that's not part of the protocol. But the idea certainly is we have to be so conscious of what we are allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do, how a person needs to act and how a person shouldn't act. That is part of standing in front of the king. All of these ideas that we're bringing up in this sefer are all surrounding the same idea. And that's this idea, Hashem comes in on Shabbos. When we're talking about Kabbalah Shabbos, Hashem is coming in. Boi kallah. It's talking about the Shechinah. Hashem is mamish here. So if Hashem is mamish here, how are we acting? What are we doing? When I'm coming to greet the Shechinah, how do I look? How do I act? And not just the moment of the greeting. I'm with the Shechinah the whole day. And we'll see in a later parak that actually as Shabbos moves along, the kedusha gets stronger. The recognition that you're standing in front of the king gets even greater. Just an interesting point to bring out about this. They say about great people that the closer you get to them, the more you see their greatness. About goyish leaders, from afar, they look very great. But when you get closer and closer to them, you see how low they actually are. By Gedolei Yisrael, by great people of the Jewish people, from far away, they might look like simple people. But as you get closer and closer and closer to them, you see really how great they are, how amazing they are. It's the same thing on Shabbos. When Shabbos comes in, it's amazing. But if we're really sensitive to it, as Shabbos moves along, we can see even greater levels. Be'ez Hashem, we'll talk about that when we get to that parak. Now we're just going to finish up. Here he talks about the din of brachos. Very interestingly enough, this is how he makes the comparison is quite amazing. The halacha is that if a person doesn't make a bracha when he's supposed to on a birchas nenim on food, so then he is mal. He's over on me'ilah, meaning it's when in English it's sacrilegious, meaning he's getting benefit from something that's Hashem's. So if a person eats something without making a bracha, it's like he steals Hashem. It's an amazing thing. What should he do? Hilchos brachos kedei shelo yivein lidei me'ilah. He should go to a chacham. He should go. What should he do to fix it? He should go to a talmid chacham and learn hilchos brachos. Very interesting idea over here. He says this straight out. It doesn't say if a person messes up in other things, what should he do to fix it? Go to a talmid chacham to learn it. To learn what to do. There are a lot of things that a person can mess up on. There are a lot of things that a person can do. And it says, does it say all of them go to a talmid chacham to learn the halachos? Why does it say dafka by brachos? Lama nimra takada zu dafka behilchos brachos. Ela be'asher hilchos brachos hein hamasa v'matam im Hashem yizbarach b'chol tzad b'chaim b'chol Hashem mitkabel l'chiyusa ba'olam. Because when we make brachos, that's kilo like our give and take with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. We're addressing a Kadosh Baruch Hu. We're standing in front of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. We're speaking to him like on Shemona Esrei. We're standing in front of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and we're speaking to him. He kabbalas pnei Shechinah hashigratit bekol shah b'shah. Mimela havizeh koish miyuchad. If we're standing in front of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, we're being mekabel the Shechinah, and we're having this talk with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Yedei yedias beis rabba lo yuchul ladas hilchos brachos. Meaning, a person should go to a talmid chacham because the talmid chacham is going to teach you how to act in front of the king. Because you will learn in the talmid chacham's house what does it mean to act with dignity, with respect. You'll learn how to stand in front of a king because the talmid chacham is standing in front of the king all the time. So that it means we're going to learn how to do it properly. Look at our gedolim and see how they act, see how they hold themselves. Then you'll learn how to stand in front of a king. And this is the same idea. On Shabbos, we're standing in front of the king. That's what we have to do. We have to learn how to stand in front of the king. Okay, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to start a new topic. Oinik Shabbos next week. Be'ez Hashem, Perek Yud Gimel. Shkoyach. Foltu.
Thank you for joining Real Judaism, where we explore Torah's wisdom for real life. Created by J Foundations and produced by Eli Podcast Productions. Find more episodes at realjudaism.org and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.